This is a bigger threat than Al-Qaeda to this country.
No, he's not talking about Hamas or the radical pro-Palestinian protesters or even China. No, he's talking about Speaker Mike Johnson's Christian faith. Folks, this is The Brink. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you like me and you like what we do here. And if you love it, you can become a Daily Caller Patriot. There's a link in that description below. Also, remember, folks, right now we are doing Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for The Brink. We're working out some scheduling issues, so that's why we've had to cut it down. But we will be back to full-time programming, hopefully very, very soon. But remember, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. All right, so take a listen to what James Carville had to say on Real Time with Bill Maher.
Mike Johnson and what he believes is one of the greatest threats we have today to the United States. I promise you, I know these people.
Right, you're talking about Christian nationalism.
Absolutely.
Talking about this
is a bigger threat than Al-Qaeda to this country. And let me tell you something. They're Speaker of the House. They got probably at least 2 Supreme Court justices, maybe more. Right? Don't kid yourself.
So just to get this straight, the man who is a constitutional lawyer doesn't believe in the Constitution, according to James Carville. Speaker Johnson has been taking hits left and right, but the core underlying message that Carville just said the quiet part out loud about is that Christians are apparently a fundamental threat. Christians, who share very similar Judeo-Christian values that our founders, who founded the country and wrote the Constitution, believed in. We have seen terrorists kidnap Americans, murder innocent Israelis, and threaten and promise, not even just threaten, promise to wage global jihad over the past, 60 days? But apparently, Speaker Mike Johnson is actually a greater threat to the United States. Yeah, there is a war on Christians. And if you don't believe me, take a look at some of the coverage that Mike Johnson has faced because of his Christian faith. So first off, what is Christian nationalism, right? You hear that word thrown around. Well, basically it's the idea that there should be Christian symbols, maybe a cross in public, right? Maybe a mandatory school prayer, maybe having nativity scenes out during the Christmas season at schools and other institutions. But what liberals do now is they also point to Christian nationalists, again, the people I just mentioned above, and they say that, they support these far right-wing policies, right? Like immigration or gun control. We're talking about legal immigration and support for the Second Amendment. And the idea there is that the left wants to try and radicalize the image of the average Christian who believes in the founding principles of this country, right? That did include God and religion as threats to the nation. And it just goes to show you how ignorant, and again, when we were talking about James Carville, so fine, but how ignorant these people are, because I'll tell you, the founders would have been modern radical Christian nationalists, all right? Don't believe me? George Washington said during his inaugural speech that it would be wrong not to praise God. It would be peculiarly improper to omit in this first official act my fervent supplications to that almighty being who rules over the universe, who presides in the councils of nations, and whose providential aids can supply every human defect, that his benediction may consecrate to the liberties and happiness of the people of the United States. Then Washington later invoked religion itself in his farewell address, saying, "Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports." Now Thomas Jefferson followed suit, saying in his second inaugural address, "I shall need too the favor of that being in whose hands we are, who led our forefathers as Israel of old from their native land and planted them in a country flowing with all the necessaries and comforts of life." And God has been integrated into our everyday lives for decades, okay? The Treasury began printing "In God We Trust" on coins back in 1865 after the public made petition, those radical Christian nationalists, right? The Supreme Court, they opened with a traditional cry that includes the phrase, "God save the United States in this honorable court." All Senate sessions open with prayer. Truman designated a national day of prayer back in 1952. Our national anthem praises God. I mean, for goodness sakes, people, the very last line of the Declaration of Independence literally says that the nation has, quote, "a firm reliance," end quote, on God. And yet, if you share these values, right, you see this type of, religious weaving throughout our institutions and the state of politics, well, then you're a radical Christian nationalist, right? You're actually quite worse than Al-Qaeda, right? Or ISIS or Hamas, right? And that includes George Washington, Thomas Jefferson too, right? They're just these radicals, and how disgraceful and disgusting, right? Just goes to show you the path that our country is down, and they want God erased from every capacity, every corner, every nook and cranny from society. They want him out. And you know why they want him out? Because God brings a sense of morals and foundations for people. It gives them something to believe in, right? Not the government. They believe in a higher power, and that threatens the power of the government. Take a look at China, right? The highest being is Xi Jinping, right? They love that. They love the power. They want that here. And if you don't believe me, take a closer look next time. Folks, remember, we will be here on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Thanks so much for tuning in to The Brink.